As the Krolax continued their attack, human governments were thrown into disarray. World leaders held emergency meetings, but no one had any answers. There were no backup plans, no weapons capable of stopping the invaders. Earth's most powerful nations were reduced to powerless figures, unable to do anything except watch their cities burn. Panic spread like wildfire, and fear consumed every corner of the globe. But in the midst of this chaos, something else was happening, something that the Krolax could never have predicted. Deep beneath the surface, in a facility so secret it wasn't even known to the highest-ranking government officials, humanity's last hope lay waiting. Hidden away for decades, it had remained untouched, a silent promise of strength for a time just like this. Dr. Eliza Kane, a brilliant scientist who had been working on classified defense technologies for years, stared at the screens in front of her, her hands trembling. She had designed it, engineered it, and now it was ready. The Aegis exosuits, advanced power armor capable of turning the tide of war, were the culmination of everything she had worked for. But no one outside this secret facility knew of their existence. For years, humanity had been blind to the alien threat, focused on petty conflicts among themselves. But Dr. Kane had always known the aliens would come. She had prepared, in silence, as the world's governments ignored the growing signs of an intergalactic danger. Now, the suits were ready to be deployed. But there was one problem: there was no time. Dr. Kane watched the clock on the wall. The Krolax were about to launch another wave of destruction. This was humanity's final chance. She hit a button, activating the facility's alarm. The door slid open, revealing Colonel Ryan Steele, a battle-hardened officer who had fought in some of Earth's most dangerous conflicts. He had been briefed on the suits, but like everyone else, he had thought they were nothing more than a last-ditch fantasy. He stepped forward, his eyes scanning the empty room where the exosuits waited. Steele was tall, muscular, and his face bore the scars of a life spent on the front lines. He looked at Dr. Kane, who had always been calm under pressure. Now, however, her expression was one of urgency. "Colonel, the Aegis suits are our only hope," Dr. Kane said, her voice shaking slightly. "These suits can withstand the Krolax's weapons. But they're untested. No one knows how they'll perform in combat." Steele nodded, his mind already racing. He had seen the power of the Krolax weapons. If the suits worked as promised, they might be the only thing capable of stopping the invasion. "Then it's time we test them." Steele turned to the team of soldiers standing behind him. These men and women, the best humanity had to offer, would be the ones to wear the Aegis suits. They were the first to be chosen, and they would be the ones to face the Krolax. Each of them had trained for this moment, but no one could have prepared for what they were about to experience. Just as Steele and his team began to plant the explosives, a Krolax soldier turned and spotted them. The alien's glowing eyes locked onto Steele's team, and within seconds, the entire area was on high alert. Steele's team sprang into action, their Aegis suits giving them an edge that no human could have dreamed of before. The sound of gunfire filled the air as the team fought back against the Krolax forces. Steele's suit enhanced his strength, allowing him to take down alien soldiers with ease. His rifle fired precision shots, each one striking down an enemy soldier in a single blow. The speed and power of his suit were incredible, but it wasn't just Steele who was making an impact. Each of his soldiers, cloaked in their Aegis suits, became a whirlwind of destruction. They moved faster, hit harder, and fought smarter than any human force had before. Fast-paced action scenes unfolded as the soldiers engaged in brutal combat. They darted in and out of cover, their cloaks flickering with every move. Steele's heart pounded in his chest as he watched his team dismantle the Krolax forces. But even with their superior technology, the Krolax weren't going down without a fight. Amidst the chaos, a loud explosion shook the ground. Steele looked up, his eyes wide in disbelief. One of his team members, Bonner, was caught in the blast. The force of the explosion threw him across the room, his Aegis suit sparking with electricity before it went dark. Steele rushed to Bonner's side, his heart sinking as he saw his friend's lifeless body. "Bonner!" Steele shouted, but there was no response. The explosion had taken him out in an instant. The loss hit hard. Bonner had been a loyal and brave soldier, and now he was gone. Steele's mind raced with anger, but he pushed the emotion aside. There was no time for grief. The mission wasn't over, and the Krolax still needed to be stopped. "Bonner's death won't be in vain," Steele muttered to himself, his voice cold with determination. He clenched his fists inside the Aegis suit, vowing to avenge his fallen comrade. The team moved forward, their resolve strengthened by the loss. They completed their mission, planting explosives on the Krolax power grid and watching as it exploded in a spectacular fireball, disabling the enemy's energy supply. But as Steele's team made their way back to the extraction point, another surprise awaited them. Back at the underground base, Dr. Kane had been working tirelessly, monitoring the battle from her lab. The Aegis suits were performing beyond expectations, but she had noticed something that could change the course of the war. A hidden feature within the suits, a high-energy disruptor that could disable the Krolax technology. The disruptor was capable of shutting down their shields, weapons, and even their ships, but there was a dangerous catch: the disruptor could kill the wearer if used for too long. Dr. Kane quickly sent the information to Steele. He received the transmission just as his team was nearing the extraction point. "Colonel Steele," Dr. Kane's voice crackled through his helmet. "I've discovered something. The Aegis suits have a feature that can disable Krolax technology. But the energy required is immense, it could kill the wearer. You need to make a choice." Steele paused for a moment. The weight of the decision bore down on him. This was their last chance to turn the tide of the war. The Krolax were formidable, but they could be beaten. Before Steele could respond, the ground shook beneath them. It wasn't an explosion, it was the arrival of something far worse. The soldiers suited up, the heavy armor clanking as they fastened their helmets. Steele looked at each of them, his voice steady, despite the weight of the moment. "This is it. We're the last line of defense. The Krolax think we're weak, but we're about to show them what humanity is made of. Stay sharp. Stay together. And remember, we fight for the future of our species." The countdown had begun. Zorthan's fleet was already preparing another devastating wave of bombardment. Steele and his team had no time to waste. As the Aegis suits hummed to life, powering up with an eerie glow, Steele looked up at the monitors. The Krolax ships loomed large in the sky, their weapons targeting major cities. "Prepare for launch," Steele ordered, his voice calm, yet filled with the unspoken tension of the coming battle. The countdown continued. And as the massive alien fleet prepared to strike again, the Aegis-equipped soldiers prepared to make their stand. The moment of truth had arrived. Steele and his team would face the most powerful force humanity had ever encountered, but would the suits be enough to turn the tide? With the fate of the planet hanging in the balance, they stepped into the unknown, ready to fight for survival. The Aegis exosuits hummed to life, and for the first time in history, humanity stood ready to fight back against an enemy that had once seemed invincible. These suits were more than just armor, they were a technological marvel, designed to make the wearer stronger, faster, and almost impervious to harm. Each soldier, once just a human being, was now a one-person army, armed with advanced weaponry in cloaking technology. They were ready for war. Colonel Ryan Steele stood at the front of the team, the sleek Aegis suit covering his entire body. The armor's systems had powered up, and the interface appeared on the visor of his helmet, giving him instant access to the battlefield. His heart raced, but his resolve was unshaken. This was it. They were the last line of defense, and the world was counting on them. "Let's move," Steele said, his voice steady, despite the tension in the air. His team followed him closely, their movements synchronized as they moved through the hidden underground facility. The team consisted of some of the best soldiers on Earth, but today, they were about to face something they had never encountered, an enemy whose strength and technology far surpassed their own. The team's objective was simple: infiltrate the Krolax-controlled zone in Paris, sabotage their equipment, and free any human prisoners. They had to weaken the enemy's hold on Earth and give the planet a fighting chance. As they exited the underground base, the team activated their cloaking devices. The world above was a war zone. Krolax ships hovered ominously in the sky, sending down waves of destruction. But Steele's team was invisible, their cloaked exosuits making them undetectable to the alien forces. The streets of Paris, once full of life, were now a desolate wasteland, with ruined buildings and scattered debris. But amidst the destruction, there was hope. Steele's team was about to bring that hope to life. They moved quickly, silently, as they made their way toward the Krolax base located near the heart of Paris. Their cloaking devices worked flawlessly, allowing them to pass unnoticed through the city, while overhead, alien drones scoured the streets, searching for any sign of resistance. The team stayed low, using the shadows as cover. The first objective was the Krolax power grid, a massive energy plant that supplied the alien forces with the power they needed to maintain their grip on the planet. Steele and his team moved in quietly, sneaking past Krolax guards who were too distracted by their mission to notice the humans creeping into their territory. Once inside, Steele signaled his team to take their positions. The plan was simple: plant explosive charges on the power generators and destroy the plant. It would create a ripple effect, disabling the aliens' primary energy source and weakening their control over the planet. But things didn't go as smoothly as expected. The deeper they went, the more difficult it became to avoid detection. The ship's interior was a maze of alien technology, with walls that seemed to shift and move. But Steele's team was focused on their mission: get to the core of the mothership and disable the cannon. As they neared their target, Steele received a critical update from Dr. Kane. The Aegis suit's disruptor, the one capable of disabling Krolax technology, was their last hope. But using it would come with great risk. It was a weapon of last resort. It could disable the cannon, but it might also destroy the suit's internal systems in the process, killing the wearer. Steele had no choice. This was the moment they had all been fighting for. Countdown to destruction. As the team finally reached the mothership's core, Steele faced the ultimate decision. The disruptor was activated, but to use it, he would have to expose himself to the full force of the Krolax's technology. He was already deep inside enemy territory, surrounded by hundreds of hostile forces. If he used the disruptor, there was no guarantee he would survive. But the alternative was unthinkable. Zorthan's laughter echoed in the comms as he activated the planet-killer cannon. The countdown had begun. Earth had less than an hour before total destruction. Steele's team had only moments to act. He turned to his soldiers, his voice filled with determination. This is it. We end this now, or we lose everything. For Earth. For humanity. The team stood at attention, ready to risk everything. The time had come. Steele reached for the disruptor. Cliffhanger. But before he could make his move, the ground trembled beneath their feet. Zorthan had unleashed the cannon's power, and a pulse of energy erupted from the mothership. Earth's fate was sealed. With the countdown ticking, Steele and his team had only moments left to stop the destruction. Would they succeed in time, or would Zorthan's arrogance be the end of humanity? The fate of the world hung in the balance. The final battle had begun, and Steele knew time was no longer on their side. The countdown for Earth's destruction had reached its final minutes. The planet-killer cannon was primed, and the Krolax fleet was ready to wipe out everything humanity had ever known. Steele's team had fought bravely, but now it was time for the ultimate sacrifice. Charging into the heart of the mothership. Steele, his Aegis suit glowing brightly, charged into the heart of the Krolax mothership. The space around him was alive with explosions and flashing lights as Krolax ships and weapons rained destruction across the battlefield. The air was thick with the sound of combat, laser blasts, energy discharges, and the whirring of Krolax ships all around. Steele's mind was focused, pushing everything else aside. He had one objective: stop the planet killer cannon before it obliterated Earth. His team followed him, their Aegis suits humming with power as they sprinted through the massive corridors of the mothership. Each soldier was a powerhouse, able to smash through doors, leap over obstacles, and destroy anything that got in their way. But despite their strength, they knew they couldn't hold off the Krolax forever. Every step they took was a step closer to their own demise. Energy cores overloading. The Aegis suits were designed to be humanity's greatest weapon, but even the best technology had its limits. The energy cores inside their suits began to strain under the pressure. They were reaching full capacity, and the suits were starting to overheat. Every step Steel took felt heavier as the suits pushed their limits. The power they had relied on was beginning to fade, and Steel could see the strain on his team. But there were too many. For every Krolax Steel took down, two more took their place. He could feel the weight of responsibility bearing down on him, the fate of Earth rested on his shoulders. Emotional core. As the battle raged on, Steel's second-in-command, Sergeant Ollie, was faced with a dire decision. The team had been cornered by a wave of Krolax soldiers. The only way to survive was to fall back to a more defensible position. But there was no time. The planet killer cannon had been activated, and its countdown had begun. The station's weapon systems needed time to charge, and every second counted. Sergeant Ollie made the decision that would seal her fate. With a fierce determination, she charged ahead, leading the team through an enemy stronghold while Steel and the others held their ground. But in the chaos of battle, Ollie was struck by an energy blast. Her Aegis suit sparked and malfunctioned, sending her crashing to the ground. Steel rushed to her side, but it was too late. She lay in his arms, the life fading from her eyes. Don't let them win, Steel," Ollie whispered, her voice weak. "Humanity needs you." Her hand gripped his, her fingers going cold. Steel's heart shattered. He had seen comrades fall in battle before, but losing Ollie was different. She had been a trusted friend, a leader, and now she was gone. As her final breath left her body, Steel felt a surge of rage like he had never known before. "I swear on my life, Ollie," Steel muttered, his voice hoarse with emotion. "We will win. No matter what it costs." Her death fueled his fury, his resolve hardening. The Krolax had made a grave mistake, underestimating humanity's will to fight. Steel's eyes burned with determination. Ollie's sacrifice would not be in vain. The mothership infiltration. At the same time, another team had managed to infiltrate Zorthan's mothership. Their goal was to disable the planet killer cannon, the device that would obliterate Earth once and for all. The mothership was heavily guarded, but the team's cloaking technology gave them the element of surprise. Inside, they moved through the ship's vast halls, encountering several Krolax soldiers along the way. Each soldier was more advanced and formidable than the last, but Steel's team was relentless. Every time they were discovered, they used their strength and technology to overwhelm their attackers. With all the strength he had left, Steel launched himself at Zorthan. In a move that took both of them by surprise, Steel delivered a crushing blow to Zorthan's chest, sending the Krolax leader sprawling to the ground. Zorthan's mocking grin faded, replaced by shock as the disruptor activated. The Aegis suit's power drained rapidly as the disruptor's energy surged through the mothership systems. The control room shook as Zorthan scrambled to his feet, but it was too late. The planet killer cannon, once unstoppable, faltered. The mothership's control systems began to short-circuit, sparks flying from every console. Zorthan's plan had failed. Visual storytelling, the mothership's destruction. With the disruptor's energy sending shockwaves through the ship, the mothership's core began to destabilize. The energy surge was too much for the alien vessel to handle. Steel's team had done it, they had disabled the planet killer cannon, and the Krolax's greatest weapon had been destroyed. But the cost was high. The mothership was beginning to collapse, its systems failing in a brilliant display of destruction. Steele's team had mere seconds to escape before the ship detonated. They sprinted down the corridors, the ship groaning and cracking around them as explosions erupted in every direction. Then, with a deafening roar, the mothership exploded in a fiery blast. The shockwave rippled through space, taking out the Krolax fleet in a stunning orbital bombardment. Steele and his team were thrown off their feet by the force of the blast, but they survived. As Earth's skies cleared and the destruction around them settled, Steele's team stood tall. They were battered, broken, and exhausted, but they had won. The Krolax had been defeated, and Earth had been saved. Ending, a new dawn for humanity. Back on Earth, Dr. Eliza Kane watched the explosion from her control room, her heart heavy with grief. She knew that Steele and his team had given everything for humanity's survival. The world would never forget their sacrifice. Despite the loss, Dr. Kane vowed to continue her work. The Aegis suits had proven humanity's potential, and she would refine them, ensuring Earth's defenses were ready for whatever threats the future might hold. The Krolax had underestimated humanity, but now they would see the true power of Earth. Final scene, as the survivors looked to the stars, they knew the battle wasn't over. New threats would come, but humanity was no longer the weak, fragile species it once was. They were a force to be reckoned with. They had stood up to the Krolax, and they had won. For now, Earth was safe. But the fight for survival had only just begun. The stars above were filled with possibilities, and challenges. And humanity, once thought weak, was ready to meet them head-on. In the distance, a massive Krolax ship appeared in the sky. It was unlike anything Steele had seen before. The ship was enormous, a dark, menacing shape that seemed to block out the sun. On its side, a giant cannon glowed ominously, a planet-killer cannon aimed directly at Earth. Zorthan had lost too many of his soldiers, and now he was preparing to unleash his final weapon. The Krolax were coming in full force, and they had a weapon that could destroy Earth in a single shot. Steele and his team had just made their first strike, but the real battle was about to begin. Would the Aegis suits be enough to stop the planet-killer cannon? And would Steele and his team survive the wrath of Zorthan's revenge? Time was running out, and humanity's fate was in their hands. The battle for Earth had reached its peak. After striking a heavy blow to the Krolax forces, Colonel Ryan Steele and his team were now separated, each group assigned to a critical mission. Time was running out, and humanity's last hope rested on the success of these daring operations. Steele's team had been given the task of defending Earth's most powerful line of defense, the space station, a massive orbital platform that housed the planet's most advanced weapon systems. The Krolax knew the station's significance, and their fleet was already en route to destroy it. If they succeeded, the last remaining weapons capable of taking down the Krolax would be lost forever. Steele knew that this space station was humanity's final hope. Meanwhile, another squad had been assigned a mission even more dangerous, infiltrating Zorthan's mothership and disabling the planet-killer cannon, the alien weapon capable of erasing Earth from existence. This was the Krolax's ultimate weapon, and Steele's team had to act fast before Zorthan could use it. The plan was simple: split up, accomplish both missions, and hope that humanity's determination would be enough to overcome the overwhelming force of the Krolax. The space station defense. Steele's heart raced as his team boarded a shuttle bound for the space station. The tension was palpable, but there was no turning back. They had trained for this moment, but no amount of preparation could make up for the sheer scale of the task ahead. As the shuttle entered orbit, Steele and his team watched in awe at the enormous space station. It was a technological marvel, a gleaming structure full of weapons capable of turning the tide of war. But now, it was under attack. A fleet of Krolax ships surrounded the station, their weapons firing relentlessly. As Steele and his team exited the shuttle, they immediately went on the defensive. The station's outer defenses were strong, but Krolax firepower was overwhelming. Steele's team was in charge of holding the line until the station's weapon systems could be activated. Action-packed sequence. The team quickly split into smaller units, utilizing their cloaking abilities to infiltrate Krolak's positions and disrupt their forces. Steel, with his enhanced strength and agility from the Aegis suit, tore through enemy lines with brutal efficiency. His soldiers were unstoppable, moving faster than the Krolaks could react. Yet, the Krolaks were relentless, more came from every direction. In the heart of the station, Steel faced off against Zorthan's elite guards, genetically enhanced Krolaks warriors who were nearly as powerful as the Aegis suits themselves. The fight was intense, each moment pushing Steel to his physical limits. The Krolaks guards were swift, with blades that crackled with energy. Steel narrowly dodged one swing and retaliated with a swift punch that sent one of the guards flying. He glanced at Sergeant Ali's empty spot. The loss of his second-in-command was a wound that would never heal. But there was no time to mourn now. The fate of Earth rested on them. The team advanced deeper into the mothership, but the Krolaks' resistance grew stronger. Elite guards and drones attacked them from all sides, each more vicious than the last. Steel's heart raced as he thought of the lives already lost, but he couldn't afford to think about that now. His team needed him to lead, to give them hope. The battle with Zorthan. As Steel and his team made their way to the control room of the mothership, they finally came face to face with Zorthan, the Krolak's supreme commander. He stood tall, his alien form towering over them, his eyes glowing with contempt. His voice echoed through the control room, mocking Steel and his team. "You are fools," Zorthan sneered, his voice thick with arrogance. "You think your primitive suits can defeat me? You are nothing. This galaxy belongs to the Krolaks." Steel's hands clenched into fists as he activated his suit's full power, feeling the surge of energy course through him. Every fiber of his being was focused on the fight ahead. Zorthan's mocking words only fueled his anger. The Krolaks had underestimated humanity, and that was a mistake they would soon regret. The battle was fierce. Zorthan, with his advanced alien physiology and powerful weaponry, was a formidable opponent. He fought with a brutality that matched Steel's own, but Steel's Aegis suit allowed him to hold his ground. Their strikes were heavy and fast, a blur of punches, energy blasts, and close-quarters combat. Steel's movements were precise, but each attack he launched seemed to be countered by Zorthan's speed and strength. For every hit Steel landed, Zorthan retaliated with a devastating blow. Steel's suit crackled with energy, but he could feel it beginning to falter under the stress. The suit's systems were overheating, and the internal alarms blared in warning. But Steel refused to back down. This was the moment he had trained for, this was humanity's last stand. Climactic emotional moment. As the battle wore on, Steel realized that Zorthan wasn't just mocking him, he was toying with him. Zorthan believed he had already won, but Steel could see the arrogance in the alien's eyes. He had to end this now. The planet killer cannon was moments away from firing, and Earth's fate was hanging by a thread. With one final, desperate move, Steel activated the disruptor, the last weapon they had. It was the Aegis suit's hidden feature, capable of disabling Krolak's technology, but it came with a deadly price. It would overload the suit's systems, possibly killing its wearer. Steel's hand trembled as he reached for the disruptor's control panel. The suit's energy levels spiked as the disruptor charged, and Steel's heart raced with the realization that this would be the end. But there was no turning back. He had promised to avenge his fallen comrades, and now was the time to fulfill that promise. The world had never seen anything like this. Humanity, for all its advances, was about to face a threat that no one could have predicted. It started with a flash in the sky, a brilliant, otherworldly light that pierced the heavens. For a moment, people thought it was just another meteor. But then the unthinkable happened. A massive alien fleet, stretching across the sky in perfect formation, dropped into Earth's orbit like a pack of wolves circling their prey. This wasn't a random event, it was an invasion. The Krolaks' empire had arrived. The Krolaks weren't like the stories humans had imagined. They were not just technologically advanced, they were superior in every way. Their ships were sleek, black, and towering, capable of withstanding the most powerful weaponry Earth could throw at them. Their soldiers, clad in glowing armor, seemed to shimmer in the cold vacuum of space, their movements as precise and calculated as machines. The first broadcast sent by the Krolax cut through Earth's communications like a knife. "People of Earth, hear this," a cold, menacing voice boomed across every channel. The speaker was none other than Zorthan, the supreme commander of the Krolax Empire. His face, alien and yet disturbingly human-like, filled every screen. His lips curled into a cruel sneer. "Your species is weak. You think you can stand against us? Your planet will fall, and there is nothing you can do to stop it." Zorthan's words echoed across the globe, first as disbelief, then as fear. He continued, his voice dripping with contempt, "Your weapons are toys, your armies are jokes. Your world is mine. You have one choice, surrender, or face the consequences." The screen went black. Across the planet, chaos erupted. Governments scrambled to understand the aliens' message, but it was already too late. The Krolax ships were positioning themselves in Earth's orbit, their weapons already trained on the world below. The first round of orbital bombardment began moments after the transmission ended. Cities were reduced to rubble. The first hit was Washington, D.C., followed by New York, London, Beijing. Every major city in the world was struck with terrifying precision. Entire skyscrapers crumbled in seconds, and the ground trembled with each devastating blast from above. The sheer force of their weaponry was unlike anything humanity had ever faced. The military scrambled to respond, but their efforts were futile. Fighters launched into the sky, their missiles streaking toward the alien ships, but they were destroyed mid-flight. Earth's most advanced weapons, from tanks to fighter jets, were useless against the Krolax. Nothing on Earth had the power to match their superior technology.